Movies don't happen overnight. They take time, plenty of planning, and of course, a lot of cash. Even the smaller films, you got to have those greenbacks. Movies aren't made for free. But even the biggest names in Hollywood have to wait and wait for their visions to hit the big screen. It's just a process. But it hardly describes what happened behind the scenes with The Oath. The new film is co-written, directed, and starring Darin Scott, and it took 13 years from the concept to reaching theaters this weekend. The president back then, Barack Obama. The biggest film of the time, Toy Story 3. And the words cancel culture were never paired together. Oh, those were the days. But Darin's idea, it just refused to go away. He wouldn't let it. The actor-director plays Maroney. He's the last of his people, and he's someone trying to preserve their history for future generations. He takes in the mistress of a local warlord played by Billy Zane, colorfully played, I should say. And of course, the two characters shockingly fall in love. Now, there's romance, there's action sequences, and there's a spiritual underpinning to the story here, too. These elements are things that Darin refused to give up on, just wouldn't let it happen. Now he shares the story behind the story with the Hitcast, from the lowest moments to what the film means to him on a deeply personal level. Yeah, I went there, and I think he gave a great answer. The Oath is playing in theaters right now. You can go to oathmovie.com for more details. But before you go, I really want you to listen to what Darin has to say about all the delays and frustrations behind the project and why they were worth it in the end. Darin, thanks for joining the show. You know, it's so funny that we're living in this instant gratification age. Everything has to be now, now, now. And you spent 13 years never giving up, making sure that this movie happened. Can you take us just quickly back to the early days of the project? And it obviously has meant a lot to you from the jump, but maybe just take us back what you were initially thinking, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, the early days of the project, just like, you know, any, I guess you'd say dream. Mm-hmm. Some people call it a dream. And I don't know if it was really that for me. It wasn't like I had this, you know, dream that I wanted to go and make this awesome movie and be famous and all this stuff. And for me, it was really more of a deep passion, a deep desire to portray cinematically mm-hmm. these stories that I grew up with as a teenager. And, you know, there's a little bit of a story there, but start the interview off with a nice, heavy tone, right?
That's okay.
Month before my 17th birthday, my father collapsed on a beach in Cancun, Mexico of a heart attack. Oh. It was a total sudden thing. And it shocked everyone in my family and everyone that knew us because he was 50 years old. And I was like, I suddenly had to kind of be a man really fast because I was the last kid in the home, last of 5 kids. And if I hadn't had gone through what I had gone through the year previous to that life-changing event, I could have handled that situation a totally different way, because you see this in life. This was C.S. Lewis, right? Was one of his main reasons for being an atheist is there's just too much tragedy in the world. Mm-hmm. Like, how can there be a God if that is the case? And I could have taken it that way and been angry. And instead, because of the tender mercy of drawing nearer to my Father in heaven, that the year previous, I was able to handle that in a very unique way. I feel bad for people who don't have that in their lives, because that strength could not have been accessed had I not been through what I'd been through. And what I'd been through is I had been, for the first time in my life, studying the scriptures. and in particular, and this is where it gets kind of fun, because, you know, I tell the audience, and it's like, what, do you want me to lie? Do you want me to tell you that this isn't true. I can't do that, because all I can give you is my experience, and all you can give me is yours. And I know what I felt, and I know the power that came into my life from reading the Book of Mormon. And I literally saved my life, because had I not done that, I would not have drawn closer to eternal things, spiritual things, and it prepared me for that. And so those stories are not just, oh, they're cool. They are cool. And regardless of what people think of that book, you can say it's, fake or, fantasy, whatever you want to say. But what you can't say is the stories are not cool, because they are the most relatable, heroic, courageous, powerful stories. They're every bit as powerful as any Marvel film you've seen, or any other heroic film for that matter. Braveheart, any of those great films, Last Samurai. It has stories like that, and what's so amazing about them is that they had like almost supernatural power. It's like they were almost heroes in that time. And then when you read some of the things that took place, it's like that's like Superman power, and they were like real people. And so it's like I was fascinated with that. I was fascinated with heroes of that time anciently who maintained their honor in viciously dishonorable times. That's always fascinated me. Like, how did they do that when everyone else was completely off their rocker and like eating their flesh? You know what I mean? Like the civilization was gone, and these people were still like praying to God. That fascinates me.
And, I think when you think about modern stories, though, is that you don't see honor spotlighted as much as it could be or should be. And maybe it's the ironic that it took so long to get your movie to the big screen, but now that it's here, it's almost it's more than welcome, I guess you could say. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of supplying something that's missing in the marketplace in a way?
Absolutely. So, and it just to be clear, you've seen it, right? You saw the screener?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, first of all, everyone can go to oathmovie.com. You can watch the trailer, and I tell everybody, don't do me any favors. Go watch the trailer. If it excites you, grab a ticket and go see it. I can promise that the experience you will have in the theater, I believe it's unlike anything you'll ever have. And I've also said this on many interviews, and I truly believe this. I truly believe that The Oath is the most thought-provoking movie you will see this Christmas season. And so the process of getting to here and, finally getting to this moment, it was a hard journey, but it's great to finally be here where we've got a finished product, and not only a product, really an experience that there's just this. I mean, the market's actually surprisingly crowded at the theater right now. We've had challenge getting screens because just all of a sudden all these films just started going to the theater, and so but what's interesting again about that is. And I think that, everyone watching this would have some sort of agreement to this, that, there's a general vacancy of films that really mean something. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if people don't totally espouse all the stuff, like as far as a belief that's in my film, like the film's actually written so you don't have to have any affinity to any of the source material. Or even to God. It's really a film that's written for everyone. It's not a heavy-handed religious film. We've done, I think, what I think some of Christian cinema. I don't want to knock Christian cinema because they're great, and any effort to promote light and specifically Jesus Christ is a fantastic thing to do. I feel that way. I feel like it uplifts everyone, including people who don't believe. But I think that a lot of times they've led with the message. Mm-hmm. So they lead with the message, and they ask the audience to forgive the production value, forgive the acting, forgive all this stuff because we're talking about Jesus, good and noble, right? And they actually get that to happen because audience members will forgive that because of the message is so great. We chose to go story first, message second. And frankly, that's how Hollywood does it.
Yeah.
And they're very effective. And we've chosen to do that in a good way.
Yeah.
And so we've finished a film that fills this vacancy of kind of meaningless movies that you get done and you're like, okay, what did I come away from that? My movie is a movie that you're going to watch all the way through the credits, and there's a very special message from Ben Cross, who has passed away, and he gave it on the very day of our release, December 8th, 2017. You will not want to miss what he says. And it's the only place you'll see it is in the theater. And so they're going to sit through, they're going to see that message, and they're going to think. I think they're going to sit in their seats and they're going to think. And our audience testing has, I mean, you never know how it's going to go, right? But we have audience tested well over 1,000 people, probably a couple thousand at this point. And so we've seen a lot of reactions. And most of the time, frankly, almost especially people who are like not religious or have left their church, it just hits them like a hammer.
Mm-hmm. It is very accessible, I will say.
They just sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
one thing that I was surprised about the film is the love story. It's got this romantic heart to it that I think when you think about the general, it's historical, there's some action, all the different elements in your movie. But I was pleasantly taken aback by the love story. Was that always a part of your plan for the story, or did that evolve over time?
I think this is like probably the 11th script that I've written for this over a 13-year span. I didn't end up doing the first script or second, third, and yeah, every one of those scripts, Randall Wallace was asked, hey, why do you make all these war movies? And he said, I don't make war movies. I make love stories. Mm-hmm. And if you think about all of his war movies, they're love stories. And it's because if you don't have a love story, like that's sentient human beings. That's life. And that's, there's nothing more powerful than love. And so when you don't have that in a movie, man, you better have some really, good things to make up for it. Because, every film, there really should be. And I think of like all the great films in the past that I look up to so much, there's always a love story. And I want to be clear that this is not like a hot and steamy,
oh no, it's sweet,
surprisingly, crazy, sexy. There's none of that. Mm-hmm. This is just, it was so innocent. It's pure. It's honorable. And I really wanted to portray the honor of righteous love. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's a little bit there. It was always kind of part of it. And I don't necessarily, think I intended it to be, the level at which or the length at which it takes place. But I mean, you kind of have to. You got 3 acts, and you can't have a love story in the 3rd act and not have it affect Act 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But then I also wanted, the important thing about the romance is that, again, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest message in the world or the greatest film in the world. You have to have a character. You have to have characters. I digress, too, that will relate to audience members. I mean, that's how you make the audience feel something. And so Bathsheba was a very important character because she was coming from the antagonist nation, and so it was kind of like a Romeo Juliet situation. These people are not supposed to love each other, and yet it happened, and it happened in a righteous, noble way, and instead of the opposite happening of a grudge lasting forever, they were able to mend an ancient grudge together. And through Bathsheba, we get to kind of learn about Moroni's, what's the word? His beliefs, and his theology, and then vice versa. He actually learns from her also. She teaches him some things. And the game that they play in the movie, by the way, I won't give any spoilers away, but that is an ancient Native American game. And so it's kind of a fun thing where they're learning from each other. And so by the end of the movie, you're feeling for both these characters, and they're both important, because if Bathsheba wasn't there, then the characters that don't, really care about God or really or understand Moroni's way of life, they'll be like, okay, I'm bored. I don't get these guys. But it's a really, really interesting kind of dichotomy between the two. And then throw Billy Zane in there, and he's got this other dichotomy of he's also got kind of he's almost like sarcastic. It was a very different take than Ben Cross took in our pilot film. And it was nice because it really contrasted, my character very well. So.
Yeah. But, one of the things I noticed about the film, and I've noticed this in recent years, is that smaller films that don't have the $100 million budgets, they look so good. They look so like they could stand next to the big budget movies, and you can't tell the difference. I know you never wanted this project to take this long to come to theaters, but in a way, maybe the technology was able to kind of catch up with you, and you could create an epic-like vision, on a scale that was more possible. Any thoughts on that? Is sort of maybe no one wants to wait 13 years for a dream to come true, but maybe things all happen for a reason. Maybe that, was that part of this journey?
I don't believe, I really do not believe there is coincidence in life, especially when someone is like trying to live honorably. I don't think there's any coincidence in life. Had we come out with The Oath even 5 years ago, it couldn't exist. What you just said, we used technology, like cutting edge technology, to complete this movie. So, and I'm not just talking about, what we got in camera, because we actually didn't have enough to puzzle the piece together. And because of up-resing technology, degraining technology, you're able to basically like repair footage. I remember watching King's Speech, fantastic movie, obviously. And there's a scene where they're eating dinner and it's extremely underexposed to the point where, it's like, it's kind of really bad. And I'm looking at the scene going, oh, we can fix that now. I'm laughing because that's totally fixable now. Yeah. The other thing's fixable, like probably half of our shots had to be stabilized because we shot most everything handheld. And I don't want to kind of alarm people. There's nothing, you don't feel sick at all.
Oh, no,
when
no.
you watch, in fact, when we turned the film over to post, they could not believe the depth and detail and just sheer complication of this edit. The first cut took me 6 months, and you got some shots that are 20 layers deep. And but the thing is, when you watch it, all you see is this refined picture, but you don't know all that went into giving it that, taking essentially what you're doing is you're removing distractions, and you're peeling those distractions away as you're editing to a point where you get the film to this, it's like crazy, super refined place. So, and every great movie, certainly every studio movie, even if it's a horrible movie, generally goes through this process of refinement. And this film is no different. I think this film actually, to the level of, say, a Marvel film, because that's what my post told me. He's like, this stuff is like, you don't see this level of perfection in a film. He had to upgrade his system to handle it. And I edited the entire thing on a MacBook Pro. So you can imagine I'm sitting there. So the technology had to catch up to the movie, and it actually timed perfectly, exactly the way it needed to be, because we had this technology to do what we needed to do. We were taking, in some shots, a medium, sometimes a wide shot, because it's the only take we got. And I'm kind of giving a little more detail.
No, it's interesting.
I think you'd agree. Yeah. I think you'd agree that when you watch it, like you already said, it feels big. And And so the audience doesn't know all of this stuff, but it's kind of an interesting fact. It just, to the rigor, the sheer rigor and determination to make it great. And I've never been a guy that, forgive the language, half-ass. I've never been that guy. I've always been like 1,000% and do the job right the first time kind of guy. And this is my first feature. I've done 30 plus commercials, directed and written in. But this is my directorial debut, so you better believe I'm not going to come out, with something that's subpar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's always interesting to see the kind of the behind the scenes, because we watch a movie, then you check out the Blu-ray edition, and all of a sudden you learn how the magic happened. I wanted to ask sort of a broader question to wrap things up. I'm a solopreneur, and I've got 2 kids, and they see me working around the clock, and I make a lot of sacrifices to do what I do. And I read a little bit about you, and you've got 4 children. Does it ever come across your mind that the fact that you wouldn't give up on this, that you saw it through, that you refused to buckle when maybe other people would have, maybe that sends a message to your children that the dreams do matter, that, you're not telling your children this directly, but I would imagine they're absorbing it and seeing what Dad has done and understanding that this was important to you. Any thoughts about that as we wrap up?
It's interesting with children that if you want them to learn your good habits, you have to actually, sit them down and teach them. Your bad habits, they just learn those naturally. It's like an irony of life.
It's humbling.
It's like, why are they picking up all of my bad habits? But when I want them to get on my virtues, I have to sit down and kind of, hey, guys, this is. Now, having said that, absolutely, we already see it in my children's life. I mean, my daughter, Bailey is, she's 17, and she just turned 17. She was a girl. She was a little girl when I started this journey, and we already see in her character, she is as determined as I am. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's almost annoying sometimes. Like, baby, stop what you're doing, stop, and come in here. We need to have a family discussion, or we need to, whatever it is. I'm almost, I can't stop what I got to finish, So they absolutely, that is like instilling in my children. And I try to weed out those bad habits, right? But yeah, there's been a lot of that. And there's been a lot of, as you just expressed, there's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of, where's Dad? And that's been a real challenge, because, no relationship can survive that, you don't really take that time together. And so it's a constant ebb and flow of making sure that I'm right at home, because if you're like me, if I'm not right at home, it's like I can't move until I'm right at home. And so that's been a good check and balance for me, because when things get a little shaky, I have to step back and I have to fix things, and then get back to this other mission that I have. So they've definitely learned a lot from that, and you hope good ways, right? At least it seems to be that way. And my son Jonah he's like this editing genius. He's already doing all this stop motion fitties. He just showed me like a 20-minute stop motion video he did yesterday. I was laughing off my chair because it was just hilarious. And he's just doing this stuff naturally. And so, it's interesting to see how your children kind of observe when you don't think they're observing. So, and what a good reminder to parents and adults, that we really ought to, try as much as possible to try to exercise self-restraint and self-control and refine our characters, because the upcoming generation, they're looking at us. And sometimes I see adults, on whether it's social media or something, I'm like, dude, you're still in like kindergarten and you're 40 years old. And so, people are watching, especially our children. And we have like a moral obligation to guide them and be good examples to them. And so I hope I've done that. You know, I've really tried to. But, you know, that, again, bringing it back to the oath, we just had some first reactions, and that's some of the repeated things is, hey, you're going to be a better person by coming to this movie. I want to be a better dad after watching this movie. I want to be a better father. I mean, you hear people say that and you're like, okay, well, is that something you want in your life? Do you want, and I say this, if you want improvement in your life, you can't watch The Oath and not feel some divine pull to reach higher.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good news is that The Oath is now available in theaters. It took 13 years, but it was certainly worth the wait. You can go to oathmovie.com for more details. Darin, thank you so much for not giving up, for sharing your story, and I hope it's not 13 more years before we talk again for your next project. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
That's another bonus episode in the can, but stay tuned. We've got great conversations with comedian Lou Perez coming up soon. I also spoke to the Critical Drinker. Yeah, your favorite YouTube critic. It's all waiting in the wings, coming very soon. And of course, I really hope you'll subscribe to the Hollywood in Toto podcast. It is the right take on entertainment, and we'll never need context to call out evil on this show. Trust me. See you next time.
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
How long was Neil Armstrong actually on the moon? When did Europe start speaking English? Did Marco Polo really go to China? CuriosityStream is the streaming service for all things history, plus science, wildlife, and more. What's the real story behind the Mona Lisa? We've got that. What caused the collapse of Rome? We know. Where did we find mankind's earliest ancestor? Come find out. For the holidays, give the gift of curiosity with 25% off gift cards for your curious cohorts. It's holiday shopping season at curiositystream.com/gift.